Hello, my name is David Gogian, and thank you for joining me. I am a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm also currently in the process of getting certified as a forward-facing coach. Welcome to Tools for Hope, Part 2. In this video, I will be talking about self-regulation. The concepts, principles, and skills that I will be talking about are based on the work of Dr. Eric Gentry, who developed this approach that he calls forward-facing trauma therapy and forward-facing coaching. This slide will show some key points about the concept and skill of self-regulation. As the first line says, self-regulation is relaxation, but relaxation is not self-regulation. So what does that mean? It means that they are not the same thing. It means that self-regulation is a way of helping us to relax. We cannot relax without it. Another way to think about it is relaxation is the result of self-regulation. So number one, self-regulation is a way of interrupting our stress response and getting back into our relaxation response. It helps us to regulate our autonomic nervous system by getting us out of sympathetic dominance and returning us to parasympathetic dominance. Because if there is no actual danger or threat in the present moment, which is most of the time, then we do not need to be in fight or flight or in sympathetic dominance. Remember, we learned in part one that a lot of bad things happen to us, meaning we get symptoms, when we are in sympathetic dominance too much. Number two, self-regulation immediately produces comfort and well-being. For those of you with chronic pain, remember from part one that I said that it is possible to be in a comfortable and relaxed body even when you have pain. Practicing self-regulation is how to achieve that. And if you can be in a more comfortable and relaxed body, that would help to reduce the distress that is associated with your chronic pain. Number three, self-regulation helps to restore our executive cognitive functions, including intentional thought and language. Number four, self-regulation catalyzes health and, with repeated and disciplined practice, optimizes health. Remember from part one that our brains and bodies have a natural ability to heal and repair itself, but under the right conditions. Practicing self-regulation helps us to create the right conditions because healing and repair only happens when we are in our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our relaxation response. Finally, number five, self-regulation interrupts and prevents reactivity while immediately granting us the ability to engage intentionally. This helps us to live more in line with our values and principles, and it helps us to be more of the person that we want to be. This slide illustrates the two components of self-regulation, which are neuroception and interoception, plus acute relaxation. Self-regulation engages both the mind and the body. And for those with trauma or stress-related chronic pain, another commonly used term for this is mind-body syndrome. And practicing self-regulation consistently by engaging both the mind and the body in this way is a key skill in helping to reduce both the distress associated with the pain, as I have previously said, but it can also help to reduce and sometimes even eliminate mind-body chronic pain. So, as we learned in part one, neuroception is when we consciously recognize that we are safe, especially when we are in situations where we are perceiving threat. The way we do that is by asking ourselves if we are in any real danger right now in this moment. Interoception is the process of consciously shifting our attention away from the outside world or our thoughts to our body in order to be aware of our physical state. With interoception, our goal is to instantly recognize when we are becoming activated. The easiest and simplest way to do this is to scan our bodies for muscle tension. There is only one reason that muscles constrict and stay constricted, and that is stress. The reason that muscles remain constricted is because we're perceiving a threat and our fight or flight response is engaged. When we are able to shift our attention away from our thoughts and environment and discover the tension in our muscles, then the last part of self-regulation, which is acute relaxation of these muscles, is relatively simple. This slide shows the human function curve, which is based on the Yerkes-Dodson law, named after the two psychologists who developed it, which basically says that our cognitive and physical performance increases or improves with energy, but only up to a point. So what is meant by optimal performance? Optimal performance is neither sympathetic nor parasympathetic dominance. It is the balance between them. For us to be functioning at our best and comfortable in our body, we need to regulate our autonomic nervous system. So if you look at the human function curve, if you look at the slide, you will see this line here, this vertical line, which represents performance. And then this horizontal line here, which represents arousal stress. Where these two lines meet, that's where the amount of energy that we have in our bodies is represented by this line. So when we get up in the morning and we start our day and the energy increases in our bodies because we need energy to move and to function. So as the energy increases, our performance improves, and eventually we reach a point where we have enough energy that we are performing at our best, or we're in our comfort zone. So if energy continues to increase, because we are perceiving threat and we're in fight or flight and adrenaline is continuing to be released into our system, eventually we reach a point where we have too much energy, referred to here as the hump. So when we reach this point where we have too much energy, our performance starts to decrease and decline. And if we continue to perceive threat and continue to have too much energy, our performance just continues to drop. And eventually we will experience symptoms like fatigue, exhaustion, and ill health. So to sum up, when we experience chronic symptoms like anxiety, depression, trouble sleeping, fatigue, low energy, poor physical health, and chronic pain, the reason is because we have too much energy in our body. Okay, so let's talk about trauma and what causes trauma. So in the first picture, we have a woman who I'll call Janet and her dog Fluffy. As you can see, Janet is hugging Fluffy. She's smiling and looks relaxed. Janet loves dogs and is not afraid of them. Dogs are a neutral, or in her case, a positive stimulus. However, one day Janet is attacked and bitten by a German Shepherd. The attack triggers Janet's threat response or fight or flight response. Naturally, Janet felt fear during the attack because she was perceiving a threat. So now a neutral stimulus, dogs, gets paired with fear. And all of the sensory stimulus that Janet was experiencing during the attack, meaning the sights and sounds and smells, gets encoded in her brain along with the energy that was released when her fight or flight response was triggered. So now she is conditioned to respond with fear and anxiety whenever she sees any dog in the future. And because she now feels fear and anxiety whenever she sees a dog, she starts to avoid dogs, which then strengthens the conditioned response of fear and anxiety. The more she avoids dogs, the stronger her fear and anxiety gets. So let's talk more about what heals trauma. So now for the good news. The way to begin healing the trauma from our childhood is by learning to regulate our autonomic nervous system so that we move out of sympathetic dominance and back to parasympathetic dominance. When we do that, we interrupt our stress response, get out of sympathetic dominance, and trigger our relaxation response, which returns us to parasympathetic dominance. So how do we do that? So let's come back to Janet and her dog Fluffy. After she was attacked by a dog, the trauma or past painful learning created a conditioned response of fear and anxiety whenever she sees a dog. The perceived threat that she feels when she sees a dog triggers her fight or flight or threat response. And remember that muscle constriction is one of the physiological changes that happens in our body when we perceive a threat, whether that threat is real or imagined. Now, remember how Janet started to avoid all dogs so that she wouldn't feel the fear and anxiety, which only made it worse over time. So, how does Janet change her conditioned response and heal the trauma? Exposure paired with relaxation equals healing. For Janet to heal her trauma and no longer be afraid of dogs, she needs to be exposed to dogs, which is the conditioned stimulus, which triggers her fear and anxiety, which is the conditioned response. So she needs to be exposed to dogs in a relaxed body. When Janet confronts the perceived threat of a dog by relaxing the muscles of her body and does this repeatedly, she begins to reduce the intensity of her fear and anxiety around dogs over time until eventually she feels safe around dogs again. This is also known as desensitization. And we can do this with all the things that we perceive as threats because of our past painful learning as we move throughout our life. The more we practice this, the more we will start to feel safe, and instead of confronting our perceived threats with aggression or avoidance, we can relax and be less reactive and more intentional about how we respond when we are triggered by challenging situations in our life and in our relationships. So how do we relax our bodies when we are perceiving threats? Here are 4 skills that you can use to do that. Body scan or wet noodle, diaphragmatic breathing, peripheral vision, and pelvic floor relaxation. Now let's take a closer look at all 4 of those. So this slide shows how to do the body scan of the wet noodle, which is the interoception part of self-regulation. Before we try this, I would invite you to first notice how you are feeling right now. Do you feel anxious, stressed, or activated? On a scale of 0 to 10, how intense is this feeling? 0 is none, and 10 is the most that you can imagine. If you are at a level 3 or less, I would invite you to try to think of a recent situation or experience where you felt like you were at a level 4 or 5 out of 10. We'll give you a few seconds to think of something. So when you have something, again, a recent experience, really try to picture it in your mind's eye like you are back there experiencing it right now. Okay, now notice what level of distress you are currently experiencing. Okay, now scan your body from head to toe and see if you notice any muscle tension or constriction. I'm going to count to 5, and I would like you to acutely relax all the muscles of your body. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, how do you feel? Did you notice any change? If you didn't, that's okay. You are learning a new skill. It takes practice to master this. If you are having a hard time relaxing your muscles, you can try tightening them first and hold for 5 seconds and then relaxing them. Doing this will help you become more aware of how your muscles feel when they are tense versus when they are relaxed. So, for example, if I'm having a hard time relaxing the muscles of my upper back and shoulders up here, I will tighten them for 5 seconds first, like this, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then relax them. So this one is called diaphragmatic breathing. So if you are sitting comfortably with your knees bent and your shoulders, head, and neck relaxed, locate your diaphragm by placing one hand below your rib cage and the other on your upper chest, like this. As you breathe, you will feel your diaphragm rising and falling. Breathe in slowly through your nose so that your stomach moves outward against your hand. Count in your head and make sure The inward breath lasts at least 5 seconds, paying particular attention to the feeling of the air filling your lungs. The hand on your chest should remain as still as possible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the exhale, tighten your stomach muscles, letting them fall inward towards your spine as you exhale through pursed lips. Again, the hand on your upper chest must remain as still as possible. And repeat these steps 5 times. Not now, but when you practice it. The next exercise is called peripheral vision. So for this one, find a spot at eye level that's located 5 to 10 feet in front of you. Focus your eyes for 5 seconds on that spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now soften your focus until the spot becomes blurry, and then hold that for 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Still facing forward and without moving your eyes, shift your focus to your peripheral vision. And do this simultaneously with both eyes. Maintain your peripheral focus for 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And again, when you practice this, you can repeat those steps 5 times. So the last exercise to help interrupt the threat response, interrupt fight or flight, and get into relaxation and parasympathetic is the pelvic floor release exercise. So again, if you're sitting down comfortably, I would invite you to place a hand under each side of your bottom. Now feel for the pointed bones that you're sitting on. These mark the lower boundary of your core. And you can see on the slide the 2 red dots at the bottom of the pelvic bone. Next, find and touch the 2 bony points just above your waist on the right and left sides of your body. These mark the upper boundary of your core. Again, those 2 points are indicated by the 2 red dots up at the top. Now that you've made a touch memory of these 4 points, imagine connecting them with lines to form a square. This is your core, which is the location where your vagal nerve connects to your pelvic floor muscles. Next, take 10 seconds and imagine allowing the square to expand in all 4 directions as you are inhaling, so that there is no clenching anywhere in the middle of it. Completely soft in that entire area of your body. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now for 10 more seconds, focus on the muscles in the center of the square, opening and completely releasing them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I want to emphasize that when you are practicing the wet noodle exercise, one of the reasons that relaxing your pelvic floor muscles is so important is because the vagus nerve goes all the way down to your pelvic floor. When we are in fight or flight or our stress response, and we're trying to self-regulate and trigger our relaxation response, if we are not relaxing the muscles of our pelvic floor, it sends a message back to our brain that we are still not safe and that we need to stay in fight or flight, which of course means that we will continue to feel stress. What is the S and PTSD? If you said stress, you are right. You cannot have stress in a body whose muscles are relaxed. And that's pretty simple. Finally, the main takeaway that I hope you take from this video is that what heals trauma is exposure paired with relaxation, and doing that over and over and over in the context of a perceived threat, just like Janet did with her fear of dogs. Doing this will help you to desensitize yourself to your triggers, but you should start with the less intense triggers and work your way up. You want to have success early in this process so that you build confidence. Then practicing self-regulation as often as you can helps to build muscle memory and create new neural pathways in your brain so that you are more likely to be successful when you try to self-regulate with stronger triggers. It's just like an athlete practicing for the big game. The more they practice, the greater their chances are for success. That is the end of Tools for Hope Part 2. Thank you for watching.